right, guys, what's going on? Keep on keeping on podcast.
We are on episode 6.
Six. We got 2 more to finish
to wrap
off
up this
the
season.
And
we got a special surprise for you guys for the next season.
Season 2 is going to be, I think, a lot of fun.
We're going to take some time and build on that and then start promoting it as soon as
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. It's been 100%. Great so far, man.
We've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the biggest thing.
And also just the people that have reached out to us.
100%.
Just sharing,
100%.
People saying, I just want to be there. I want to jump in this conversation. I want to jump in the conversation.
And we were just talking about that off camera. We were like, the reason we have these conversations is like, if you're listening, to feel like you're a part of the conversation, you want to be a part of the conversation. Because at the end of the day, I think like this topic of, what we'll get into today, like mental health and stuff is important for everybody. And I feel like everybody has a need for it. They just, whether they recognize it right now or they recognize it years later. I was just saying, I think I told my mom when I was in high school, was like, because they got me on personal development pretty young, right? Was, I feel like people need personal development at some point in their life.
Right.
Whether that's like, when you're young or when you're like, you hit an obstacle when you're like 30, 40 and all of a sudden like you change gears to. Just
changes your life.
Yeah, just you realize like, hey, the routine that I was in or whatever rituals I'd put in up until this point are just not working to the level I want them to work at. Personal development gets this rah-rah motivation vibe to it, but in reality, it's just wanting better for yourself and finding the results that are going to better you, whether that be through health, finance, fitness, anything like that. So, like, I feel like what we're doing, it resonates to the right person.
Yeah.
And whoever's listening, if it touches you, and we live for the comments and the feedback and the responses, like, honestly, that makes us thrive. That makes us,
awesome,
like, aside from us having this, we like to call them like our own therapy sessions.
Yeah.
Like, well, this will be like therapy for us. But like, we like it when you guys come in and you say, hey, we really enjoyed that part, or that resonated with me. And, or I had a really good friend of mine mention like, like I forget sometimes, like I take my life too seriously. I forget to like just enjoy it at times. Cause that's what, you like, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but you only get this 1 year of your life for 365 days.
No.
You're going to be 19 for 365 days, 20, 21, 20.
Yeah.
So like make the most of the chapter. Make the most of the chapter of that time that you're in, like you're only going to be 20 for a year, 21. You want to enjoy that time period to the max of its ability and still work towards the things you want to work towards. But like when you look back at it, you don't want to be like, I didn't get a chance to enjoy that time frame, or I didn't get a chance to, like, I was never really present with my family or my friends, or because I was constantly stressed about this or this.
Just losing sight of those things.
Because at the end of the day, at the end of life or whatever, those things tend to be the more important things.
That's your base. That's your foundation, which is
100%.
exactly what we were talking about off air that we wanted to talk about today.
100%.
Is these successful superstars, right?
Yeah.
Actors or musicians, whatever you want to call them. But so many of those people, they reach what they feel is what, if they reach that's it, right? Like, or that level of
even
fame.
we feel is like, they have nothing to complain about anymore.
Yeah, like that's the dream. I wish I was them, all that stuff. And when you hear these different celebrities, you can say Jim Carrey or all these different people, when they reach that level of fame, stardom, right? Like millions of dollars, you're a superstar, you're funny, everybody loves you.
Hell yeah.
And you still don't feel whole or happy or complete.
Yeah.
That right there just goes to show, like, your true base foundation is your personal. Do you have people to share it with?
Yeah.
Your
relationships.
Your relationships with family, loved ones, anything. Because that's so true, man. My most, like, wholesome days, like, as an example for me, right? I can work like a lot and get paid a lot of money, let's say, and work extra. I'll feel good for,
and you'll enjoy it. Yeah.
I'll feel sad, like good for like an hour. Like, oh shit, I got paid good today.
Yeah.
And then it just fades out, and then you're just kind of back to your normal life, right? But like, I compare that, or I go out with friends for a night, and we have a really great night. It's a wholesome night. We have great conversations, and And I took in. I feel like I took in a lot of value from that, right? Like, and
it just means a lot more to you.
And driving home, I'm like, I felt so whole. I was like, wow, like, and it reminds you. And so I saw a tweet on this. Like, people were joking around, like, they were being funny because you know everything on Twitter is funny, but it's so true. Like a night out like that with just friends, good company, and good conversations reminds you of the simplicity of life.
Simplicity of life. 100%.
I'm driving home.
It's like the beauty in the ordinary things that we tend to take for granted, and we constantly look for these highs that can come from like an accomplishment or like a achievement or that celebration.
And you feel it, but then you're kind of just back. And imagine if you feel that and you're like, oh, I have this, and then you're back, but you don't have anyone to share it with or to go out with, or you 100%. Feel alone. That's a scary feeling.
Well, there's 2 points that you reminded me of immediately. It's like one point that I want to get into is like the emotional home that we live in, right? That's like what we constantly revert back to, regardless of what's happening. But more importantly, like you mentioned, that satisfaction. It's like when you're a kid, right? When you're a child, and you're like, I really want that Hot Wheels car. Or I really want that toy dinosaur or whatever it may be. And then you get it. That excitement for that toy lasts how long? A day maybe, max, right?
Yeah.
It's almost the same like when you have a certain level of accomplishment that you've been wanting to achieve, and then you finally get it, but then a part of you is automatically like, okay, what's next, right? So that satisfaction of that success, it doesn't last. So like our constant pursuit of that success, or I'll be happy then, or I'll be happy when this happens, it's almost. It's pointless because when you get there, you automatically your perspective will change.
It's like materialistic things too, right? Like, oh, if I just had 100%. This car, I would feel so good.
Or this house.
And you get the car, and you're like, oh, look at my car.
Awesome.
After like a week, you're kind of like, you're back to normal.
It's my car. It's the car that I drive to go from place, That's not to say to have those things or those aspirations.
Yeah, no.
It's to remind you,
it's
like,
not everything.
It's
like
not
that's
everything.
not your root of like the happiness.
Of happiness,
because
exactly.
You get a car, you love it.
Yep.
But after a week, sometimes you're thinking, oh, like my next car is gonna be this. But then you're kind of always chasing something, and you're not really looking.
You're not really present, and you're not enjoying it even.
Yeah. Like it's so interesting. It's so interesting.
It's very important that like when you go into success or you want to achieve success, and everybody, at least from what we know, everybody wants to achieve success. Yeah. Now, whether they want to put in the work for it or it's a completely different story, but everybody has this vision of what success looks like to them. And at times that becomes the bigger picture when the little, you've heard the saying, like the little things end up being the big things.
Yeah.
It's like those birthday parties that you go to with the family members or the friends, or they end up being the memories that you think about the most as time passes. You don't think about necessarily that raise you got or that bonus you got or that, achievement that happened. Yeah, those things are good to look back upon, but you remember more the moments where you just laughed till your stomach hurt with your friends, or, you cried with a family member. You remember those moments of human emotion a lot more than you do necessarily your biggest achievements. And then if all you have to say at the end of your life is your achievements and nothing else, then how fulfilling of a life is that,
It's so interesting because I mean, like what they say, your memories will go with you, right? Like not your
You're
car,
not taking nothing with you.
Not your money in the bank, or
100%,
and not feeling. My biggest fear is hoping that I don't have some sort of like that regret when I'm going, you know, when I'm passing away or whatever. Because that must be such a scary feeling.
Yeah.
Like you can't go back. Yeah. That's it. Like
you're just looking back on your life and like, I mean, it's every time, like, you remember in one of our earlier episodes, you shared the story about how you had an older employee who was working with you, and you were sharing that story like, oh, I wish I could travel, or like to be 20 again, or to have that regret would be the most painful thing in the world, I think. And so I think, like, if you can look back in your life, whether you achieve the things you want to achieve or don't achieve it, but if you look back and say, I gave it my all and I pursued it, and there's no regrets in that factor or that sector of my life, then you've lived a very fulfilling life.
And just to add to that, now that you mention my coworker and stuff, maybe a few weeks ago, another thing happened. Yeah. And it made me think about these same things. So I had another coworker, an older guy. Yeah. Very nice guy. He's from Colombia. He has a son in Colombia, whatever. Right. So he works and he sends him money because his son is doing school over there, all this stuff. And he was gone for a while. He went on medical leave. Yeah. Mind you, this guy was always working full time. He was always there. And he was on medical leave for a while. The last time I didn't see him, but someone else saw him. Oh, he looked kind of sick. He didn't look too well. So he had to do some surgery or something like that. And a few weeks ago, we found out he passed away.
Oh, no way.
Like a cancer, and it spread all over his body super quick. They couldn't do the surgery on time or something. Oh, my God. Passed away. And I was like, wow, obviously, may he rest in peace. And I was thinking about it. I was like, wow, man. Like, it made me kind of think, because I talked to the guy when I would go to work and stuff. Really nice guy. He was just making some money for his son to keep going to school for what he was doing. I think it was like aviation. Yeah. And
poor guy, man. Damn, rest in peace.
Yeah, and it made me think about it because I know he didn't like that job. Yeah. Obviously, he looked he looked done. He was just standing there, and I just couldn't help but think of like how just his final moments,
not being as happy,
just working, man. Like working, like, full-time employee. Yeah. And that
it really makes you think, like, how many people that, you always look up to the people who have these magnificent lives, but then there's also a bunch of people who don't necessarily have the best of everything and have to work up until their, death. And in this case, a very untimely death. Yeah. And that tomorrow really is never really promised.
No.
And I think that, like, when you put that in perspective and then you put the things that you want in life in perspective, and the only thing you can really control, you can't control whether that dream comes to fruition or not. You can't, right?
No.
What you can control is your effort towards that dream. You can control your actions, your energy. You can only control your attitude, per se. Because, like, whether we do the things we really want to do in life, it's who knows, right? It's not written right now. We can only years from now look back and be like, we accomplished this, we accomplished this.
And what good is it if you've been like miserable and
accomplishing those
and
things,
not present the whole time, right? Like, if you're just angry and like, just I gotta get this, and you spend 20 years of your life trying to get this thing, then you get and you realize you sacrificed 20 years. Yes, you got it.
Yeah, but you also lost a lot.
And you see a lot of that. Logic, the rapper, talks about that a lot. He said he sacrificed a lot to get where he is now, like a lot. Yeah, and he got there, and he's proud. He's still young. He's still young, but he said, like, man, like,
I think
this is not everything. Yeah, he said the same thing. That's why he took a break, and he's like living in the middle of nowhere right now.
People like J. Cole talk about this, like you said. Jim Carrey talk about this. They bring Mike Tyson. I was just watching the Nelk Boys podcast where Jamie Foxx was talking about how he's making a movie on him, right?
Oh,
and he called, like, when he called Mike, and they were like, they were almost like laughing. They're like, oh, is that like, because he does a great Mike Tyson impression. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so does. They were like, is this the voice you're going to use? It's a high pitched one. He's like, you know what? Like, we decided not to go that route, and we decided, like, when I called him, and he was like the tone changed, and the way he was having the conversation was like, I'm happy. Like, I don't have these people. I have no money, but I'm happy. I don't have these people that are trying to take money from me or always try to, like, have something for me to give and me not know whether they're there for the things that I can give or they're genuinely there for me. Like, I'm happy. Like, I'm at peace. It's like, that's the tone that we use for the movie. So that got me excited because, like, it's not necessarily going to be that typical Jamie Foxx impression. Yeah. It's like he's really going in deep and he's trying to find the meaningful moments of Tyson and bring that to life.
Yeah.
And that's another example of, like, Tyson, Jim Carrey, who say that these things, like, they've reached the top of the top in their respective professions and they still feel this way. I remember Jim Carrey has a very fascinating story. He would go to, like, this place in LA when he didn't have a job, when he didn't have an acting job, and he took out, like, a check. He wrote himself a check that said for acting services rendered, and I think it was like 10 million, 20 million. Yeah. And he dated it. I think it was like the next year or the following year. And he had no job, no prospects of, like, what he was going to do in terms of acting, but he had that, he wrote that check down and he put it in his wallet and he kept that with him everywhere. So he'd look at it from time to time. And that process of visualization and manifesting what he wanted out of life, lo and behold, and he got that. And then, the rest is obviously history. Dumb and Dumber, I believe it was The Mask.
The Mask. It might have been The Mask.
It might have been The Mask.
Yeah, one of those big ones. Yeah.
One of those big movies for him. And obviously his career took off, and Jim Carrey is a legend. And then for him to have those moments when he comes and people almost think like he's crazy because he's saying these things don't mean anything. They think he's having like a midlife crisis.
Like at that award show.
Like that award show, exactly.
When he showed up and he was like, none of this matters.
None of this matters.
True.
It's just,
does an award show really matter?
Yeah. Realistically, it doesn't matter.
You know?
That's
so interesting,
It goes into like that conversation we had earlier. Is like we have these lows that we consider our lows. And those are the highest of the highs for some people.
A lot of people. When you really think about it.
Exactly.
When you like look out of the United States. And
we're the 1% to the rest of the world.
That is insane. We kind of forget, right? Like I know I forget all the time. Like I kind of have to be like, dude, there's literally people like that don't have food, like
and they don't know where their next meal is coming from. They don't even know where their next shelter is. Yeah. And some of those people are even in the States where they don't know where their meal is coming from, and they don't know where they're gonna stay. Yeah. So like you have to kind of put yourself in perspective. Like, yes, maybe you're going through a really tough time now, but there's always somebody who may look at your life and be like, damn, that's a dream life. That's all I can want. It's very interesting. It's like that top mental health, but like also that chase of success and and especially with that thing with my coworker, man, that it hit me in that sense. I was like, wow, like, so like his last, I've been there a year, so I knew him more or less like a year. But before that, I don't know how long he's been working there. But man, that's a lot of your time, like your final moments that you don't know are coming. And he's just working behind a counter, like not happy, and that really hit me, man. Because it's like you never know, but also just having that presence of, because at the end of the day, what's the sad part of it all is, he passed away, and we just hired somebody else. Yeah. And he probably slaved away at that job. He probably gave his full effort, full time, showed up, gave the most, and the best the job can repay him with is, hey, we need to fill that job by Monday. We need to fill that job by Wednesday. And it just reminded me of like sometimes, because like I told you this, I'm working overtime right now. I'm trying to make extra money, but sometimes I'm like, hold on, and lately a little bit more because I haven't been going out as much, right? Because I've been so caught up with things that now I'm just kind of like, you know what? No, like I'm going to make time to hang out with friends or this, make that time. I don't know. It's just because you just never know, man. You just never know. It's weird. When I hit 25, I'm 26 now. When I hit 25, I had this kind of existential crisis almost. It was like why am I not exactly where I want to be in my life? And like, and that, but when I hit 26, it was weird. It shifted. It was almost a very, and this is obviously me, I'm speaking from my experience only, but it was almost a calming reassurance, like, hey, like you're doing what you need to be doing at this moment in time in life, and everything else will transpire the way it needs to transpire. Right. And whatever happens, there's a blessing, or you're being guided. Yeah. And it was like this calming feeling that all that pent up stress that I had, like when I was 25, it was kind of like it just relaxed. So I could go and enjoy a moment out with family and friends and not be stressing like I'm not doing what I need to be doing. I need to, take that day. Take that day, off. Take that moment, take that like dinner, take that like and just be present. And realize and I remember I would recall my senior year of high school and my senior year of college, there were two common themes. I knew it was my last year in that respective environment, and I knew I was going to make the most of it. Yeah. So I hardly ever said no to like new experiences. I didn't think too much about certain things. If I didn't do, homework, or I didn't study for that test, I didn't think of it as the end of the world. I would rather take that moment and be with the friends and have that conversation and laugh and joke for an extra hour than go and study and like I need to pass this because I knew it's finite. I need to enjoy this moment. When it's over, and I can look back on it and be like, I spent it to the best of my ability. And I did that in both areas, in college and in high school. And something happened when I hit 26. I'm like, every single year is that.
Your life is just
because bro, like things like the things you want in life, obviously they may come, they may not come, but like the things you also have in life are also fleeting, and you don't know how long you have with those things in your life. Whether that be the car you drive, whether that be the people around you. You might lose a friend to, you know, whatever, some issue or something,
and you never know it until it's already done,
until it's past.
Yeah, and then you're like, and
it's like that. I read a meme that got me really sad. It was a quote tweet that was you don't remember, like you never knew the last time you'd go outside and played with your friends, your neighbors, your, you know, whoever. Like you didn't know the last time you were playing with that group was the last time. It was always, hey, I'll see you next Monday, and all of a sudden, you know, maybe you started 7th grade or 8th grade, and all of a sudden your responsibilities changed, and that you never knew was the last time. So it's the same thing with almost every other aspect of your life. You never know your last time with things. So why, yes, you aspire for the things you want to aspire. That's always been our theme. We're still going to go after our goals and dreams, and nothing changes in that regard. But when you start appreciating your life and you start appreciating the things you have, certain things happen. Like you have that level of presence, but also life gives you more things to be appreciative of. Yeah. And I know it's a cliche thing to say, and like, where's the proof? But it I don't know how to explain it, but like when you give more, you're given a lot more things. And it's not like you do it for those things to be given to you. It's just it's the law. Yeah. And it's just what I've seen in my life. I'm sure you've seen it in your life when you give, definitely. And you already are a giving person by nature. So I'm sure you've seen yourself been blessed with certain things. You were like, how did this happen? Or what was the reason for this happening to me? Or why did I deserve such a achievement? And it was really because of the type of human being that you are. Right. But really like trying to encompass the fact that like you appreciate where you are, because you're going to, like, people think like when you're in that appreciative, grateful state that you won't have the hunger to chase the things that you want. When in reality, it's almost a little different. You're chasing it for the right reasons then.
And you're enjoying the journey too. You're enjoying the journey. You're not obsessed with the destination. It becomes a little, like, your shoulders drop. You can enjoy. It's not as tense. It's like, I gotta get there. And you're ignoring everything else around you.
You gotta put your life in perspective of like, hey, it's the thing Tony Robbins likes to talk about, which we were talking about with these actors, and it's success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. Imagine being the richest person in the world, having all the money, and then still not being fulfilled. Like, what? Like, you're telling me like all of this is supposed to make me extremely happy, and now I get it, and now I'm not happy.
And then they try like making themselves feel better by using their like money or whatever to do things that they think is going to make them happy. Pleasure, buying cars,
charity, gifts, this, that, and the other.
It leads to that thing.
No, my fault.
And it leads to all those things. And a perfect example of that we were talking about off air before this, Alan Richardson, yeah. And he was talking about, he's an actor and stuff.
The guy from Blue Mountain State, was it Thad? I think Chad was his name.
Okay.
Thad.
Yeah.
No, I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't, no.
So
I haven't.
Thad from that is now Jack Reacher's TV series. He's the main guy.
And he did like
he's been in movies and TVs for a long time. Like, he's established in the industry that he probably wanted to be established in.
Yeah, and I saw this random interview with Michael Renbaum, I think is how you say his last name. I just popped up on YouTube. Yeah. And he was talking about, his life and stuff, and one of his best career years ever. He says that every year he writes down his goals, and like that's what he wants to tackle for the year. So for him, it was like sell a script, star in this movie, and release a book, book. And he said that year he remembers checking everything off. Yeah. And that he still felt at his like lowest. Wow. And he went to see like a therapist and stuff. So he was suffering like depression, bipolar, and all this different stuff.
Anxiety, and
mind you, he has like he has a wife, kids. Like he's like, I have all these things. What is it? And it's just that thing of the mental health awareness, right? And because he denied it when they told him, oh, look, you have like bipolar, he denied it. He was like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? Yeah. He got super aggressive. Yeah. And he never really checked himself. And then also business wise, you know, he was getting blackmailed and this, like the ugly side of that business.
The environment was just very toxic for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was saying he recalls like just being like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I have everything, but I feel, and it got so bad. And he was talking about mental health and depression, that for people who go through that, he was saying that he understands, like when that someone is taking their own life, which he attempts to. He was saying that the reason why he did it was he actually felt like leaving this world was
easier,
like was better for everyone else. Like him subtracting himself from the equation of life would make everyone else's better, because he just didn't add anything.
Yeah.
And he was saying that's what a lot of people that go through this feel. They actually believe that them removing themselves
is better for
makes
the people around.
They're doing everyone else a favor.
Yeah.
You know, because he felt like, I was just bringing like everyone down. I guess some stuff with his wife, and he was talking about this story on this podcast. Mind you, I just found it randomly.
Yeah.
And in his house, in the second floor, he had like a set type of thing, and he hung himself with a green cable on the second floor.
Jesus.
And he said as he was about to go out, like he was just about to go, he had a very clear like vision of his two kids older.
Yeah. And
with no emotion or anything, they're just looking at him, and they told him like, "Don't do this.
We need you.
We need you.
That's crazy.
You don't need to do this." And he said that it was just so vivid, and he was about to go, and that gave him that strength. And he said if it was, you know, he's a very athletic guy. He said if it wasn't for him working out, having that strength, he wouldn't have been able to get himself out of it. Because he basically climbed up that green wire that he hung himself with, and was able to get himself out of it for that last. But he said if it wasn't for him being a workout guy, that would have been it.
That's crazy.
And he was talking about that, and then he just, you know, just how that last millisecond, you know, where like you don't need to do this.
Yeah.
And that's what we were talking about before the podcast about those the studies that you were saying about how.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they've been studies about how like when these people that experience that near suicide event and then they live, a vast majority of them say like the millisecond before they either hit the water when they jump off a bridge, or they pull the trigger of the gun, or they, you know, go to hang themselves, they find the solution, or not necessarily the solution, but they find a reassurance that like you'll handle whatever the situation is that you're running away from, and or you know, trying to escape from, or just leave from, and the pain you're trying to avoid. And then they find that it's either not that much big of a deal, or they know the answers, or
they just don't want to leave this life,
or
right?
They don't want to leave. They still want to live. Or in a situation like for him, it was his kids who came and so these people end up, you know, like that's why you hear a lot of times when they pull the trigger, it's in a way where it's like they move the gun at the last second, and then they either, you know, blow off a chunk of their face, or because they realize very sad stuff. They realize at the last second,
like I don't want to do this,
or they, you know, when they jump off a bridge, they become paraplegic because they broke something from their back or their legs. They'll end up going the rest of their life just talking to other people who are dealing with these mental issues and battles, and people dealing with the depression and the anxiety who have those thoughts, and they maybe go to therapy, and you know, they'll probably bring them in as like a speaker, and they'll speak to these, you know, individuals in that regard, and they give them their experience, like, hey, like whatever it is that you're going through, I get it, I've been there, I understand, and you know, I'm right there with you. Just, you know, don't do what you want to do so badly. Like, you'll figure it out. Because a lot of times you think about like a lot of the, you know, whether that be kids in high school, middle school, I feel like their life is like, all it is that middle school, high school life. They don't realize, like, okay, they'll go to college and there's like a bigger campus.
It's a whole world
out there that just exists, ready for you to do whatever you choose to do with it, you know? And that would be my tip to like anybody who may be battling it or maybe going through it, is one is to just talk it out with somebody who's, you know, who you trust and who you admire, who you respect, who has that impact on you. and share those things, you know, just be vulnerable with people, because when you get a chance to be vulnerable with people, you'll understand that other people will also be vulnerable with you.
Like if that guy, Alan Richardson, if him sharing that story, how many people you think that saw that podcast are like, wow. Even for me, right? Yeah. I don't have, I've never had like thoughts like that or anything like that, you know, fortunately for me, you know, but even for me, I don't understand it, right? Like I don't understand.
Kind of the similar way,
but I can take it in and be like, wow, like, because that's profound.
I was just gonna say that's very
like,
profound.
I can take it in and learn from it, and understand, like, it's so good that he's speaking about that for other people that are going through the same things, you know.
And it's better for people to listen to somebody like him than us, because like we said, we don't understand it to the max of its ability, and we're still learning as we go along.
And that's
this
why we
journey.
share it.
That's why we share it. Is like for people that are going through it to find that voice from somebody who's been through that same emotion, or hit that rock bottom, or, you know, found like their way out of it, or realized the last second that the life was worth living. And, you know, a lot of times, like for an example like that, where we want to do more for others than we'll ever do for ourselves. So had he not had that kid vision, or his kids or his wife, he would have been a lot, like he probably would have been gone. Like that vision may not have come, or, you know, the answer might have been a little different. It might not have been empowering enough for him to struggle his way out of that green cable, you know? And so it's like,
that's so powerful, man.
It really is. It really is.
That study, there was another study that came out about, they were studying the brain waves of someone this older person that passed away.
Yeah.
But he happened to pass away with a heart attack. Yeah. And the brain activity, they were saying it could add to that theory of like that possibility of like, you know, your life flashing before your eyes before you go.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's your actual whole life flashing before your eyes, but
or I do
think there could be something that does occur in between that transition 100%. Of life and death. And when you're looking at him, for example, that example of just his kids, like what happens in that in between.
100%.
That's so interesting. You know, maybe for some people that die peacefully, it's different. Maybe it's just kind of like you're just going
smooth
peacefully.
and
then if you're struggling and you're trying to take your own life, like this guy,
like you get those
that vision.
That, it's very strange.
And that's like a whole realm of just, you know,
it's just untapped.
Whatever it is that you believe in,
exactly.
But
whatever you
that's
believe
just
in, exactly.
A whole other realm of just whatever is in our brains and in this universe, that
the energies, like just it's
that
very fascinating.
You know, the people that have deja vu or like have dreams that all this stuff, but that's so insane to me. That
100%.
And it's just really powerful stuff, man. And the fact that this is a guy that has
this level of success,
everything. You know, you look at Robin Williams or
Anthony Bourdain.
Anthony Bourdain.
Bourdain, yeah.
I was talking about this the other day with a really good friend of mine, and I was saying that I was like, Anthony Bourdain, everybody said it, like, had like the best job in the world. He traveled the world, tried foods, met people,
paid millions of dollars, and had a lot of fame.
That's what a lot of people would
die for,
kill for. Yeah, like, oh my God, like you're traveling the world and getting paid for it, and eating foods, and even he had his own,
hung himself in his room,
battles, you know,
hung himself in his room.
And it
goes to show you that, like, it's not really the money, it's not the fame, it's not the success that's gonna make you happy. And Harvard did a study. This is common news now that Harvard did a study. It was like a 75-year study, 80-year study of like who the happiest people were in their life, or what was it, 50 years, something like that. Some crazy amount of time they spent on the study. Who they found were the happiest people, and they found the people with the best relationships, or the quality of relationships in their life. Not necessarily like husband, wife, or spousal or significant other relationships, but all types, friends, family members who had that big network of relationships, and they were healthy
and with themselves,
lived the longest,
right?
And were the happiest. I mean, it's the common thing, bro. You see it in movies all the time. You see it in reality all the time. How many rich people you know that are miserable?
Yeah.
It's that thing I was talking about before, like your emotional home. Like, what do you revert back to? If your emotional home is always depressed or anxious or frustrated, you're going to revert back to that emotional home.
Mm-hmm.
It's on us to change it. And it takes time. It takes like brain rewiring to like readjust. You know, they say you practice gratitude for 21 days. You can rewire your brain to be happier, be more appreciative, be more grateful. So there's certain exercises you can do to change your emotional home and get to a place that's, you know.
And what's interesting is a lot of these, for me, what I've watched, a lot of these different actors that go through the same things, they all kind of, when they felt at their lowest, they all reached towards the same. They start like studying and researching and practicing like Buddhism, for example. And because the practice of that, like you're stripping away your ego. Yeah. You learn to check your ego and literally just be present with yourself, step out of yourself and be present. Yeah. Right. And that's,
or even just enjoy like the simple things that you have because you're literally forgotten to do it.
What do they do? You're stripped from everything, right? Like you're just, it's just you, right? And with all what you have around you, maybe like a book or whatever, you know, or like like the monks or anything. How do they live? And it's completely different, but just all these actors that feel like they're at their lowest and they're struggling with their ego of just what all these desires and wants, what they need, how they need to be or whatever, or like their struggles.
But it's also like, how many times have you been out of the country a lot?
No, I want to, but
no, the point I'm getting at is like, you go to a place, like I've been to India a bunch, and you'll go there and you'll see somebody who doesn't even want a fraction, or doesn't even have a fraction of the things we have as like a commonality. Yeah. Right. It's still some of the happiest people. Mm-hmm. It's like that saying where, like, you know, there's a fisherman in the Maldives or something, and a businessman comes for a vacation. He sees a guy fishing. He's like, hey, you can turn this operation into, you know, 2 boats and then 3 boats, and then you can build like a warehouse. And then he's like, okay, so then what happens? And then he's okay, you can build it like this. And then when you're 65, you can sell it. And then he's like, what am I going to do when I sell it after 65? He's like, you can sit on a boat and you can fish. He's like, I'm doing that right now.
That's you know? Such a good one. Wow.
Like, it's like I'm doing that right now. And then it becomes like, not everybody, and we had this discussion before, not everybody wants the glitz and the glamour and the fame and the success at like a ridiculous level. Some people just want to live, enjoy aspects of life and live their life. And then you have the people who are overachievers, who want the success, want the fame, want the riches. There's no right or wrong, right? But I think the one constant that should remain for both is to find fulfillment in things that aren't materialistic things, and just
that's present with you, with yourself and around you, you know.
Or just be appreciative of things, because you can't be grateful and fearful at the same time. You can't be grateful and anxious at the same time. It just doesn't exist. You're either thankful or you're anxious. One or the other. So that's why it's so important that like you reframe your mind when you get into those low states of being, and you know, and reframing it and maybe even removing yourself from an environment that's toxic. Yeah. Maybe the reason you want to, you know, take drastic measures with your life is because of the environment that you're in. Yeah. The world's big enough, man. Leave the house, leave the, you know, the and it's easier said than done. Obviously, I know this, but you know, maybe that's something that you need to just rewire yourself.
So it's so interesting, you know? Man, because that line, it's just that line of 100%. And when you listen to these successful people talking about these things, and it's a pattern, right? Yeah. Dwight from The Office, Rainn Wilson. He was on this. I found this podcast, and he was on this podcast too, and he was talking about the same things. He was talking about he had a problem with drinking, and because he said like The Office, like he just had this overwhelming thing of rush of fame, and he said, you know, his ego, and he was dealing with all these things, and he started drinking, and he studied the same things. He started studying like Buddhism and like detaching, stripping away that ego. Yeah. Not letting, like, understanding that that's just your ego. That's not you. Yeah. And like stepping out away from yourself and looking at things and understanding how you can react, and there's all these things practicing, you know, for himself, right? Because he's like, if you follow that ego all the time, it leads to all these bad avenues. And he went through that. Ben Affleck talked, you know, he was an alcoholic before. He had trouble with drinking, and just the same things of just finding that peace within yourself, and being present, and these are all people that have hit lows.
Yeah.
And they're at, the height of their career. Ben
100%.
Affleck was Batman.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck was Batman.
And then to me, he's the worst Batman. But he's had so many more successful movies of just, for years. He's been successful for years.
And
but
exactly
the point that
he was going through that while he was Batman. So that's like
while he's at the peak of his career.
Yeah. And
established, red carpets, everybody knows him. Like he's
and just noticing that pattern. Jim Carrey's the biggest example of what he says all the time. Just like detach yourself from all that, and it's just that understanding and controlling the ego. And it's not ego being like, you're like cocky, but ego and like all your desires wants, what you feel,
those things. Yeah, exactly.
And when you check that and you can step back, and really just understand and be at peace with yourself.
It's something Jamie Foxx said yesterday, which was like, he said when they asked him like, "Yo, like, how do you have so much energy?" And Jamie Foxx, 54 years old, was on podcast.
He does not look 54, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a whole different story. But he's 54. Asked him like, "Yo, like, how do you have so much energy?" He's like, "Yo, like, when I look at my life, when I look at like my grandparents and my parents, like they did not have this life of the things I get to enjoy on a day to, like this thing I've been blessed with. So I can't not have this level of energy, be appreciative, take pictures with people, sign autographs, and just be a joyous person and have these stories. Like, I mean, you listen to any Jamie Foxx interview ever, it's the most entertaining interview of all time. He has these stories, he's behind the scenes, he does impressions amazing. Like you need to have a certain level of energy to deal with that, And that's another theme that I find is like having that proper energy for life. Like Kobe said, it doesn't matter what game I'm playing, who I just lost to, who I won to. When I get home, my kids see dad. My daughters see dad, and they don't understand just lost a big game. They don't understand I just got hurt. They don't understand how many hours I put in the gym. They need full energy dad when I get home. And so you have sometimes like the quality of your life, like I like to believe, is the energy that you show up at. The higher the energy Mike Tyson said it too. He said, your life isn't about, this was before he was about to box again. He said, life isn't about your age, it's about your energy. You don't enter a room and you say, hey, I'm Mike Tyson, I'm 50, 60 years old. It's, hey, I'm Mike Tyson. Your energy introduces itself, point blank, period. So when you have a high level or good energy about you, more things vibrate to you, frequencies. It's a whole different chapter, a whole different universe
energy.
We discussed.
It's
completely like a different concept. It's a foreign concept for a lot of people because it's not tangible. You can't say yes for certain this will happen if you do.
Like what you feel you attract. It radiates out, and
it's the whole theory behind manifestation
and
visualizing and all of that stuff is the energy. If you frame yourself as you already have it, which is why the I am words are so powerful. I am blank. Whatever you put after that, most powerful words in the dictionary. Whatever you define yourself as, you will find yourself as.
And you attract more of whatever it is that you're bringing out.
100%.
It's so crazy, man.
I think that's a great point to end on.
Yeah. This was a really
intense,
deep one today.
100%.
I caught myself getting emotional a little bit today.
I was like
because
100%, dude.
It's so,
especially the story you shared of your coworker. Like that's heavy.
Yeah, man. And
it's heavy. That can really put things in perspective for somebody on the outside. And I can only imagine the pain that his family and everybody's going through because they lost somebody who's
Another perfect, what you just said about Kobe, right?
Yeah.
And it's, I love that pattern of, look how hard he would work, but look how the energy he brought back home. He wasn't just like, I don't have time
for this. No,
I don't have time for you. I got to study.
You can't do that. No.
I put my hours here. Yeah. Now this is, he knew, and he talked about the same things.
Yeah.
The ego, but, being
100%.
Present, being, stepping out of yourself and looking at things in a certain, all these
commonalities through people, the patterns. It's very fascinating.
You learn from the ones that are learning it, later on, and then you see the ones that are already established in it, and you see the growth, and that's
very true.
Such an amazing thing.
Very true. That's a great point that you just made. Like later and early on, you see very true.
And you know what? And
it's a beauty that we live in such a digital age where you can get so much information from people that wasn't available before.
Yeah.
And people's willingness to share now.
Yeah.
a successful person will come on a podcast and share what tribulations they went through, and you know, now you can like assess, hey, like I'm going through something similar. This is how he tackled it. Maybe I can. What is a creative way? So it's like we live in such a blessed time, but we've never had more depressed people. It's very strange.
It's all stems. It starts
strange.
with the ego.
It starts with the ego.
With social media, the ego.
100%.
What am I portraying myself as? And the most beautiful thing about that Kobe thing, and the sad thing, because that's how he applied to his life, right? And he got all the success.
Yep.
Beautiful family, right? And he was a good father, and passed away, man.
Yeah.
That's the sad part of it. The beautiful thing is how well.
I mean, if you look at his life, he's lived a full life.
You know.
I mean, he gifting his wife like the Notebook's dress, like the actual dress from the movie, like as a gift. Like you talk about like just experiencing super highs, and you know, having the scandal and stuff. And
imagine if he had only, like, if his attitude, right, was only about I'm only focused on everything, my career, and he like threw his family to the side. Imagine, of course, he didn't have time to think because of the way he passed, but if his final
legacy
moments
would not be the same.
Just family wise, you know,
that's
like,
what I mean. Like legacy through the family would not be the same.
And what would have happened for him in his final moment? Like, let's say that moment with with the thing with the helicopter.
Where he would have thought of like his life,
the regrets.
Done,
that would have instantly, for sure.
Well, you think of all of the people that don't have the level of success that Kobe has, but have success in a different way, whether that be business, and they lose their family because during those moments they chose that work. They chose that. I gotta finish this. I don't have time for you right now. And then you spend when your successful years just trying to pay for your love. But then, hey, I know I missed all of your teenage years, but here's a Ferrari.
And that's times you don't get back.
It's just the kids don't look at you the same.
And that if something does happen, and you're in that moment before you're not thinking of you're
all of
the
hours you spent on work. You're
thinking
of I lost this time with my child. I lost this time with my wife. I lost this. So it's like,
and that's to show how fragile life is. That even you could do everything right, and
look, there could be something that
a helicopter crash.
Yeah,
and this is a guy that that's the beautiful part of it. Like, he did everything that balanced. Yep. He had a great career. But
it wasn't even
healthy
like
family
life.
Balance
makes it seem like you kind of juggling. It was kind of like he kind of went 100.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to do the best, maximum out, in the basketball, but I'm also going to go in the moments I have with my family, whether that be, because he would tell his story, bro. He would be like, I'm going to wake up at 4 and I'm going to work out 4 to 6 so I can be up, have breakfast with my kids, drop my kids off to school, then go and work out again. Or he wanted to make sure that the moments when he was home, when he wasn't traveling to play ball, that he was at home and giving 100%. So many people would just be like, I just got back from a 13, 18-hour shift. I'm not going to wake up early or take care of my, and that suffers in a way. And you obviously you have moments where you can excuse those moments. It's not like every time you have to, but it's like the energy you bring.
That's the,
can't be one
the beautiful thing of it.
Success in life, I think, is like when you conquer all things. You're a healthy person. You have mastered your finances. You've mastered fitness and your family life and your relationships. Now, that doesn't mean balance. Like, hey, I'm going to 15 minutes here, 30 minutes there. No, it's like when I'm with you, I'm with you.
Yeah.
100% of my attention is here.
Yeah.
I'm going to get, because you can't be 50% here and not 50%. I should be doing something else.
Yeah.
Both things are going to suffer.
Phone,
both
dealing with
suffer.
Yeah.
You might as well just be on your phone, secluded, and knocking out the business that you need to on one side, and then, set up a different time for your friend or your family member or whatever. Like,
it's an incredible thing. And you see that. Real. And
I think a common theme also that we can end on is just that energy aspect we just discussed. You got to have a high energy, man. You can't play life at a low energy level, or the results you're going to get in life are going to be low energy results.
And understanding is just, you never know when your time can come, man.
That's what's so very, very
beautiful
important.
And so sad about it, because like how he applied his life was
it could end at any
you
moment.
can look up to that. Like, that's
100%.
an amazing way, because that commitment he had with success,
full years of life lived,
was the same commitment he had towards his family.
Yeah.
Career and family. He was committed 100%.
Yep.
And he did he
talks about it. He's like, yo, like, you can't do everything, right? So he's like, did my friendship suffer? Of course. But it became a priority for him. Like, it was his priority was his family.
Yeah.
So that's why you never really saw Kobe on like these trips with like other NBA players and things like that. He was more like, I'm gonna spend this time with my family, and then I'm gonna go train.
He knew his priorities.
I'm gonna go train. Like, you got to know what your priorities are and what you can give your max energy to, and other things that may not deserve.
Yeah.
That, you know, you have to sacrifice certain things to excel in other things, but just make sure you can live with the sacrifice. Like Kobe was, I'm sure at the end of the day, he was okay with like
not going out to a club,
and being with, you know, so-and-so on a certain vacations. Like, I lived it to the fullest with my family and my basketball, and that was all I wanted. It was my priority, and he made it happen.
That's the base. That's the foundation
like
we're
you
talking
said,
about.
It's beautiful, and it's sad because the beauty of it is death is a constant reminder of tomorrow's never promised. Maximize today, whether that be showing love to somebody, giving your full affection and not leaving things unsaid,
which is what he did.
And
then, but also seeing how,
but also
shortcut it can be. Yeah. And I mean,
and it's sad because, you know, it's finite. You know, once it happens, it's done. That's it. There's no way of contacting said person. There's no way of, you know, talking to that person, or obviously there's, you know, when you believe in spirituality, there's levels of how much you can communicate with them. But what I mean is, you won't have that same relationship, you know, and that relationship will no longer, you can't call that person anymore and be like, hey, how you doing? You know? So I guess the way to really capitalize on the message is maximize that. No, you know, I think Gary V's so crazy. They asked him like, yo, give me advice. Like, give me like your shortest advice. He said, you're going to die. That was his thing. Like, yeah, you're going to die. So like, maximize everything that you want to maximize. Again, like I said, there's going to be sacrifices. You just have to live with what you're willing to sacrifice. No.
It's insane.
That's solid.
I think that's a great way to end it. This was a great podcast today. This was awesome.
Very deep. Very deep. I think we needed to switch the variation a little bit, because, you know, you need. It's all about the human experience, right? Like, I know you can't always just have comedy movies. You got to have that emotional movie. You got to feel the tears. You got to have the action packed. You got to have you got to have the horror films. You got to feel scared.
Because it's all the things experience. It's the human. It's all the things we go through. 100%. Variations of life, you know.
100%.
Oh man! All right, guys. Well, thank you.
Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching and for listening.
Love the feedback as always.
Feedback has been great.
Every single message, every single, you know, you guys reaching the shares on Instagram or social media. Like, we couldn't be more thankful. Genuinely.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Anything else?
Man, that's it. That's
all right, guys. Thank you so much.
Stay tuned. We're excited. We're gonna be working on season 2 very soon. So. We're coming to the end of season 1, and we hope you're getting the value that, you know, we can provide. And much love as always from Justin and I.
All right, guys. Till the next one.